I'm excited to have back on the show Kim Vopni, an accomplished pelvic health specialist who's here to talk about pelvic health and her exciting role in a documentary, which we're all going to learn about. So, welcome back, Kim. It's always great to see you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me back. I always like our conversations.
Yeah, so as I said, congratulations on your role. Now, can you tell our viewers and listeners about how did it happen and your role in two documentaries, I believe. Is that
Well,
correct?
there actually is a second, but it's a different company, and I can't share the details of that one yet. But this one is part of Biohack Yourself Media. So they recently launched a documentary called Biohack Yourself. And for those who aren't familiar with the term biohack, it's essentially leveraging food, lifestyle, technology to optimize our health span and our longevity. That's essentially what biohacking is. And the creators of Biohack Yourself, the documentary, also did a second one that is focused on women's health, and it's called Shield, and it's a play on words to say she healed. And I don't know the exact release date, but they're targeting summer of 2025 for that one to be released. So you can follow along at Biohack Yourself Media. It'll be posted. They have some information there about it and some of the guests that are going to be featured in that documentary. But it is a pretty extensive list of people, and I'm super excited, first of all, to be a part of it, but also to watch the end product because the caliber of people that are in there and the information that's going to be shared is going to be pretty mind blowing.
Yes. Well, that's exciting. I mean, how did you get involved? Like, how did it
Good old
happen?
social media. They found me from my social media account, you don't know which eyeballs are on you. And every once in a while, there's some people that reach out that have been watching you for a while without you even knowing it. So they had reached out and wanted to learn more about what I did. And then they invited me to join them.
Exciting. So you have to tell us when it will be released. So we'll stay tuned for more, right, Kim?
Yes,
So
yes.
you've done incredible work and you're a role model to many for pelvic health. And I just like to say that, with your pelvic health floor, how do you get a stronger pelvic floor? And when, like, can we go and see a doctor or get to see a specialist like yourself?
Yeah, so the pelvic floor is a group of muscles. And if we think of we go to the gym, we do all sorts of different types of exercise to strengthen muscles. And not to say that the pelvic floor is not involved in a yoga class or resistance training or running, whatever it is that you're doing. But sometimes it's the pelvic floor, it takes the brunt of a lot of things. It's kind of the center of our universe, and it's the foundation of our core. So we've all heard of core exercise. And our core and how we develop power is via the pelvic floor. And many things can also come and hinder or interfere with the function of this group of muscles, like pregnancy and childbirth, poor posture, chronic constipation, coughing, hormones from menopause transition. And it needs a little bit of extra attention. However, we know all the other exercises to do. There's many different fitness magazines, right? We know how to work out. Not to say that everybody does, but we know what we should be doing, and we realize that there are gyms for a reason and there are exercises for a reason. But we've never been given any information about the pelvic floor, and that this group of muscles also benefits from specific training to strengthen it. But the interpretation of what strength means can sometimes be misinterpreted too. And this can be the same for the whole body. Strength we think of as we think tight means strong. So we need a tighter vagina or a tighter pelvic floor. But tight muscles are weak muscles, and there's less blood flow, less circulation, and tension can create pain and discomfort sometimes and limit the range of motion and the ability to generate power. So, specific to the pelvic floor, we want to do pelvic floor muscle training. And when you asked about who we could see to learn more, to assess our pelvic floor, the people I recommend seeing are pelvic floor physiotherapists. So these are physiotherapists who have additional training in the pelvic floor, and they are licensed to evaluate and treat beyond the opening of the vagina and sometimes even rectally. Males, like men, can also see and benefit from seeing a pelvic floor physiotherapist, but women in particular, because we go through menstrual cycles, because many of us give birth at some point, because all of us who live to the to our midlife, we will all go through menopause. There's lots of additional challenges that we face. We have a vaginal opening, we have a uterus, the pelvis in the female is wider. So we face additional risk factors. And I view pelvic floor physiotherapy as something that we should all really be doing once a year, just like we go to the dentist once a year for a checkup. So that's who I would recommend seeing.
And Kim, what is meningitis? Meningitis, like what is that exactly? Is that like the pelvic floor as well, or is that?
Vaginismus?
Yes.
Yeah, vaginismus is it's like involuntarily tightening of the pelvic floor. So
Mm.
this can be um it's there's no real cause associated, but sometimes it's associated maybe with fear or trauma in the past, an interpretation of something being painful. And we start to then, the muscles will involuntarily contract and restrict and not relax to allow for potentially insertion. And that could be insertion of a finger or a tampon or a toy or a penis. So it's an involuntary contraction of the pelvic floor that can inhibit certain functions.
So you can do pelvic, floor exercise, which will help, right? It
Yeah,
will.
and so for somebody dealing with vaginismus, and there's other pelvic pain conditions, the first step would really be about identifying what could potentially be the triggers, what could have been a from the past even, and addressing those, but also then working on release and relaxation, breath work, calming the nervous system. Before we think of, we think of Kegels as a pelvic floor exercise, but that's not a blanket statement going to solve every pelvic floor problem. Kegels play a role, but typically when somebody is dealing with like excessive contraction from an involuntary perspective, especially, we don't want to add more contraction. We want to work on lengthening, calming the nervous system, releasing tension as a first step.
So that's wonderful information. So when you've been on the show for a few times and
Mhm.
we talk about what is pelvic health, the pelvic floor exercises, and there's never enough information in the landscape. Do you think it's getting better with education, awareness, or do we still have a bit of a ways to go, Kim?
I think there's always room for improvement. I've in the 20 years I've been doing this, it's like awareness is way more than it used to be. The tides are turning for sure. A lot of people are learning about this via social media. The younger generation knows about pelvic floor physiotherapy. They are going prior to getting pregnant, during their pregnancy, optimizing their postpartum recovery. So all the things that when I started 20 years ago that I was preaching, that I struggled with trying to get people to participate in, are now I see it happening, which is good. I do though still feel like we have we have so much more opportunity for sharing this information earlier in life. I think really this should be taught in schools when we're teaching kids about their bodies and menstrual cycles and sexual health. I think it is a perfect opportunity to introduce the concept of the pelvic floor, and like pelvic floor is not a concept, but the concept of caring for this part of the body and training this part of the body because of all the things that we go through in life. So it's changing. I still think we have a little ways to go, but definitely on the upward trend.
Yeah, sometimes there's that stigma, right? Oh, I don't feel comfortable telling, about how I feel. But now with, as you said, and in the mainstream media, right, it's becoming, the awareness is there, but it's good to have it in schools, right, Kim, that you.
Yeah, we want to normalize the conversation. And what I'm seeing is, as I said, the younger generation is definitely way more comfortable
Mhm.
talking and exploring and sharing on social media and being, authenticity is celebrated now. It's the older, I'm in the 50s, the 50-year-old, 60-year-old said that grew up where it was, you don't talk about this, it's shameful, it's taboo. But they're now, even after years of suffering, coming in. I have so many women in their 70s, 80s coming into the community, and their lives are changing because they've suffered for years and years and years. And when they some of them can be resentful, but when they take the steps and start implementing this, they can make significant change really, really quickly. And I hear all the time, I wish I'd known about this 20 years ago, or I wish I'd known this for my mom, or I wish this. And so I see that the trajectory is changing. The trajectory is moving in the right direction, and the young people are going to change, already are changing for, next generations. This is going to be the norm, I would say, in another 20 years.
Yeah, and it's never too late, right? You
Yeah,
see 70,
never.
80-year-olds, so it's never too late to do, to make changes in your life, and why suffer, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, with pelvic health, you talked about, men have it too, right? But
Mhm.
do you have any clients that are men, Kim?
I don't work with men, but I get asked pretty much every single day from women who have a partner, male partner who is dealing with prostate issues. So that's not the only reason why a man would have pelvic floor challenges. Men can deal with pelvic pain, they can deal with chronic constipation, they can deal with a lot of what we do, but they the big trigger for men is usually prostate issues. And I hear from women, will this work for my husband? Will this work for my partner? Will this work? And the short answer is absolutely. The principles that I share apply whether you have male or female anatomy. The cueing, so I use different cues and visualizations to help women access or connect with their pelvic floor. So if you were a man, if you were in male anatomy, the cueing and the visualization would be different, but they have a pelvic floor. The same postural principles apply, the same breath applies, the same movements can benefit. So I work with women. Mine is very female centric and women centric, but that doesn't mean that your husband can't do it with you or your partner can't do it with you, and just use different cueing. And I provide a little section on the inside of my program that addresses, here's some cueing for men so that they can do it with their partners.
That's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And so you're in this together kind of thing, you
Yeah.
can pass it on, which is great information. And
Yeah.
can you tell us about some, other services you provide, because you are also an author. For those who have never watched the show or listened to it, I don't know how many books you have now,
Mhm.
but you're just, out there and paving the way for others to be aware of your pelvic health floor. So,
Yeah, I people learn differently, and I've tried to create content in as many different ways possible. I'm online. Obviously, I have a strong online presence, but some people like a good old-fashioned book, and I have to say I'm the same. I love reading a real book. I don't want to read my stuff online all the time. So my first book was called Prepare to Push, and that was how to optimize your pelvic floor and abdomen for pregnancy and childbirth. And then I co-authored a second book. It's more like a textbook through human kinetics, and it's called Pregnancy Fitness. And it was, I mean, anybody can read it. I have it as part of my certification course, and a lot of personal trainers and professionals would read that book, but it's really written for anybody. And then the third book that I wrote is called Your Pelvic Floor, and it's a really good overall, what is the pelvic floor? What do we need to know through the various life stages that we go through? Does have some exercise in there as well. And I have in my brain a fourth book that may or may not happen this year. We'll see, but I'll keep you posted on that one.
oh, that's great. And so you also have contests as well. Like what else could the people to check your website, but what else are you offering?
Mhm. I do. So I run contests sometimes for the people in my community, but another thing that I love doing and I love witnessing the transformations that happen is through my retreat called the Pelvic Love Retreat that I co-host with a pelvic floor physical therapist named Dr. Bree Grogan. And we host that on Salt Spring Island. We do it in usually the August, September timeframe. This one coming up for this year is sold out already, but we're
Oh,
hoping to add another location, maybe a Mexico one as well. So we'll ideally be doing two in a year. But the retreats to me are, first of all, I love connecting in person with people.
mhm.
My co-teacher Bree and I we have the same fundamental education and beliefs, but we approach it very differently. We're kind of like a yin and yang. So
Mhm.
we bring a good variety to people, but there's this community again that people realize they're part of when they come to these and they learn about the whole body approach. It's about how we sleep. It's about what we put in our bodies. It's about what we think. It's how we move. It's how we hold ourselves. It's the beliefs that we have. And when people are together in a group and we spend that beautiful week together in nature and with beautiful food, and we're resting and digesting better than we are when in the craziness of home and the stress that we have in our day-to-day lives, people walk away with such a remarkable new sense of self and so much more information. And we hear months later of what they do to take action afterwards that I think is really powerful.
Mhm. Kim, if people want to reach out to you, where can they go?
Yeah, my website is vaginacoach.com. I do have a contact page there. Most people message me directly through social media if you happen to be on socials. Instagram is usually where I hang out the most, and you can send me messages directly there. I have a YouTube channel. Lots of people will comment and pose questions under my videos on YouTube as well. So basically, if you go to Google and put Vagina Coach in, you'll find me somewhere.
Oh my goodness. It was so, I mean, we could go on and talk all day, but I wanted to thank you so much for, spending time with me today and talking about, pelvic health and the pelvic health floor. And congratulations again on everything. It's just like you never stop. Documentary and you're like having
A
a
lot to talk
book.
about.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
yes, thank you so much for
Thanks for having me, Christine.